Good morning. Today, we're going to talk about something all of us use every single day, passwords. More importantly, we'll see how they're actually stored and why using something like 1234 is a terrible idea. And this is important for us to know since we use passwords for everything on the internet. Take it from this slide-making presentation to all of our social media websites, and then the more important things like our Gmail and banks. The slides will provide a comprehensive examination of the cryptography concept of hashing and how it has come to be so critical in our world today. We'll also highlight the critical differences between hashing and storing passwords in plain text. I'm Harini Sundaramoorthy, 23 MIA 1166, and we're going to understand the passwords and hashing. This presentation will provide an overview of passwords and hashing techniques, and in the end, we'll also emphasize the best practices for password security and how it's essential for us to do our part to prevent unauthorized access and data breaches. So first, before we get into everything else, we'll talk about the dangers of using simple passwords. One of the main things is that they're instantly cracked. These simple passwords, like 1234, are among the first tried by attackers during a breach attempt, making them extremely vulnerable. Their predictability means that they can be cracked in an instant, exposing user accounts to unauthorized access. Next, they're commonly found in leaked databases. And if you don't know what a leaked database is a centralized collection of information about past and potential data leaks and data breaches. On the internet, when data leaks happen, the database can sometimes become public, and hackers or any malicious user can create a leaked database and use them to perform a dictionary attack. We'll get into that later. But this highlights the importance of choosing unique and complex passwords to ensure security. When you choose something that's completely unique or very complex, it's most likely not going to be found on this leaked database. And therefore, hackers have one less resource that they can use to find your password. And third, they contribute to larger breaches. Now, I'm pretty sure all of us have done the thing where we use one password for multiple websites. It's easier for us to remember that way. But using these passwords not only compromises the individual accounts, but also contributes to larger data breaches that can affect numerous users, as these passwords are often reused across multiple sites and services. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, we'll look at the common attacks on weak passwords. First is the brute force attack, and I'm pretty sure we've all heard this word before, but let's learn what it means in this context. Brute force attacks with passwords involve systematically trying every single possible combination of characters until the password is found. You know, in spy movies or any other action movie, you'll see a character often performing a brute force attack, while they'll set a machine and they'll try to get every single password combination. For example, in real life, a hacker would know that an iPhone password needs 6 digits to verify, and they would have to go through 10 digits and permutations and combinations, which can be a little complicated. But a weak password, like 123456, cracks almost instantly due to their simplicity, and it's obviously one of the first things that a hacker would try. Next, a dictionary attack, and we talked about how this utilized leaked databases. A dictionary attack utilizes a list of common words and phrases to guess these passwords. And since many users accidentally choose easily guessable passwords to keep in their minds, this method becomes highly effective against weak passwords such as password or let me in. Next, the rainbow table. Rainbow tables are pre-computed tables for reversing cryptographic hash functions. They can quickly look up these hashed passwords, making it easy. Malicious actors can create lists of commonly used passwords and compute their hashes to create rainbow tables. Then, if they can get a hand on a company's hashed password database passwords, they can simply look for each of the hashed values on their rainbow table. If they find a match, they instantly know the corresponding plaintext password. This approach requires far less time and computational resources than cracking passwords, using the brute force technique, or even the dictionary attack, because now they have the exact answer that they need. They're not guessing and checking anything. With these rainbow table attacks, they aim to exploit the vulnerabilities in the password protection infrastructure themselves. They're looking at the hashed encrypted passwords, and they are bypassing that and creating a rainbow table. So that causes kind of a security issue. It's a more advanced way for hackers to break into user accounts, and it's often much faster to boot. To prevent this, people have come up with the concept of salting, and we'll get into that later. So now we know how weak passwords can cause an issue. We'll talk about the risks of storing passwords in plaintext. Plaintext storage is very dangerous because they leave them vulnerable to breaches. If a breach was to occur, there's no encryption on these passwords, and so attackers gain instant access to all user passwords without any challenge. Also, weak passwords lead to rapid breaches. Like I said before, weak passwords such as 1234 or password highlight the risk of using easily guessable credentials. For example, take 1234. 4 digits can lead to some issue, though it's not that hard using all a brute force attack. But 1234 will be found out much quickly rather than using a different password. Take, for example, 1753. These passwords can be cracked within moments by attackers. Also, we have frequent database leaks, and this was also talked about before, but since database leaks are frequent, and when they occur, all stored plaintext passwords are revealed. This is a major security concern for both the users and organizations. Users who are trusting these organizations to give their data should also help out, and organizations should find a safer way to keep the passwords in their database so that in the chance of a breach, it becomes harder for them to find out the plaintext passwords. Let's talk about an example. The RockU incident from 2009. RockU, a developer of Facebook apps, was breached, and the impact? Around 32 million plaintext passwords were leaked. They stored all these user passwords in plaintext and transmitted them without encryption, and that was an issue. And the aftermath? This dataset became one of the most widely used corpora for cracking and for research. So we'll go into the specifics of password processing in login systems, though there are many ways that our passwords can be stored. When you log into a service, such as Instagram, Netflix, or any other social media, your password is not simply stored. It undergoes a secure transformation that varies from company to company. This is called the hash function. This hash function converts your password into a unique hash value. Websites utilize this hashing to convert passwords into unique irreversible digital fingerprints, which means the original password cannot be easily retrieved. And we'll also talk about the importance of salting for enhanced protection later on in the presentation. When you log in, the website doesn't just store your password. It stores only the hash. When you type your password, it hashes it and checks if it matches the stored hash. That way, even the company can't see your actual password. So here, it's like a little thing where we can see the exact steps. It transforms your password into a fingerprint, which we all know everyone has a unique fingerprint. The main thing is that it's irreversible, which means you cannot find the plaintext password from the hash, and that makes it very secure. A consistent output for the same input. Every time you enter that password, you'll have the same hash function applied, and so therefore, you'll have the exact same output. And this small change yields a big difference because these plaintext passwords are not being revealed anymore, and that makes it very safe. So now we'll go into the steps of how these websites store passwords and how these are taken to protect user passwords during the storage process. The user enters their password into the website's login form, initiating the authentication process. When you log in and you create your account, you then add your password, and that password goes through a hash function, which is unique and converts it into a unique hash. Step 3. The resulting hash value is securely stored in the database and not the plaintext password itself. So companies, they actually don't know what password you put in. They only know of the hash value that they're storing in their database. And the last step, during login, the website hashes the entered password and compares it to the stored hash. I've entered a password, and since it stays the same every single time I log in, the hash being entered will be the same as the stored hash, and if it isn't the same, you know that it's the wrong password. This is a method to verify legitimacy and still keep user safety in mind. So now that we've gone through all of that, there is one small issue. If two people happen to use the same password, the hash would also be the same, since the same hash function is being used on everything. And attackers can use the rainbow table to instantly crack these weak passwords. To prevent this, we're using something called a salt. An assault is a random string of data you added to a user's password before hashing. This even though both users picked the same password, since the salt string is different, the user's hashes will be completely different, and that makes sure that every single hash is unique. Even the salt destroys rainbow tables because the attacker would need to generate a new rainbow table for every single salt, and that's not just humanly infeasible, that's also computationally infeasible, which makes it super strong. Salting is powerful, but it's not magic. So again, using a password that's super weak, like 123456, even a salted hash can be brute forced quite quickly. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, and we know what hashes are and how they're used, we can look at best practices for password security, since we know that even though through all of the security, using a weak password can still mean a hacker can gain access to our data. So first, use long random passwords. Using long random passwords makes sure that we keep our data safe. Immediate vulnerability comes from passwords such as 123456 or password 123. While they are long, they're not complex, and so these passwords can be cracked in seconds due to their simplicity and their predictability. So therefore, we should also make sure that they're random. Here we can see that strength against attacks. Strong passwords like the ones mentioned on the screen, they're more complex and resistant to attacks. They take often billions of years in measurement, and that highlights the role of strength in password security. Now, we should also avoid reusing passwords, and we talked about why before with the leaked databases and how it leads to larger breaches. We can utilize password managers like Norton or Google or Internet Explorer who keep our data safe for us. They keep our passwords safe, and we don't have to memorize all these hard passwords. It's there for us, and therefore, we can keep our websites and our data safe. And we can also enable two-factor authentication, something that Gmail does now. You can enter your password, and you can also make sure and click the same number that appears on both the screens. So here's the summary. Your password isn't kept in original form. It's kept in hashes. And that makes sure that even if the database is compromised, actual passwords, they remain protected. By using these strong, complex passwords, alongside your modern hashing techniques, you greatly enhance your security against potential breaches. And your information, the secure information that you want to keep saved, such as your social media information, or even your banking passwords, your banking details, things that can be used against you, that's also safe too. So it's also what we do, and it's also the hash function. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Now we have looked at the differences between hashing and storing passwords in plain text. We've realized why weak passwords are a really bad thing and how to rectify it by using different various techniques. We also know how these organizations use hashing and salt to make sure that our passwords are kept safely. This is a good thing in modern day because now we know with the amount of technology that we have and AI coming up, it's becoming harder and harder to keep our data safe online. So using these simple techniques can often be super safe. Thank you so much.